On Christmas morning, my daughter-in-law handed me a sealed wooden box and said, "You finally get what you deserve." Her family burst out laughing. Even my son smirked without lifting his eyes from the glowing screen in his hand. I stared at the gift, perfectly wrapped, strangely heavy. My wife leaned in, barely breathing. "Don't open it," she whispered. "We'll die." The room froze. Behind the ribbon, a faint click snapped the silence. What had she hidden inside that box, and why did my wife sound so afraid? Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments, where you're watching from right now. The box sat untouched on the side table, but its weight felt heavier than the tree. The morning after Christmas always had a stillness to it, wrapping paper half-tucked beneath the couch, dishes stacked high by the sink, the faint scent of cinnamon still lingering in the air. I stood by the window with a lukewarm cup of coffee, watching frost claim the lawn inch by inch. Our dog, Buddy, paced at the glass door, but I didn't let him out. Something about the quiet outside mirrored the silence inside me. On the table, nestled between leftover pie and a reindeer centerpiece, sat the wooden box. It hadn't moved since last night. Neither had I. My wife, Elaine, placed her hand on my shoulder as she passed behind me, her grip tighter than usual. "You didn't sleep," she said. It wasn't a question. "No," I replied. My voice scratched against the walls of my throat like a match without fire. I kept thinking about what she said. The way she said it. Elaine nodded, her eyes fixed on the gift. "It's not just a present, William. It's a message." At the breakfast table, our son David scrolled through his phone, fork tapping rhythmically against his untouched eggs. Amanda, my daughter-in-law, stood by the sink, humming a Christmas tune just slightly off-key, her voice syrupy and distant. No one mentioned the box. "Amanda," I said, trying to keep my tone even, "you gave me that gift last night. I was wondering." She turned, smile painted on too quickly. "Still haven't opened it?" "You know, people usually say thank you first." David chuckled without looking up. "Guess some people don't like surprises." It wasn't the words, it was the way they were said. Like I'd missed a joke they'd already enjoyed. I looked at Elaine, who gave the barest shake of her head. "Not now." The coffee tasted burnt. I placed the mug down, the clink louder than it should have been. I glanced again at the box, its corners too sharp, ribbon too neat, like it had been prepared long before Christmas morning. I noticed something odd then. The box had been moved. It wasn't where I left it the night before. I was sure of it. Last night, I'd placed it beneath the fireplace mantel, beside the photo of my late father and the worn leather Bible. Now it sat front and center on the dining table, like a centerpiece. Like it belonged there. Elaine noticed too. Her brow furrowed. "You moved it?" "No," I said. "Did you?" She didn't answer. David's voice cut through the tension. "Dad, don't make it a thing. It's just a box. Just a box." 3 words that sounded like a shove. I sat at the table slowly, feeling the weight of my own body in the chair. For a moment, it felt like the house wasn't mine. The walls still had our family portraits. The smell was still Elaine's Sunday cinnamon. But the energy, the air, it was different. There was a scrape. A slow, dry sound from the hallway. Elaine flinched. "Probably Buddy," I said quickly, standing up. "Carpet's loose again." But I knew the sound hadn't come from the floor. I walked into the hallway. Empty. No dog. No wind. Just the box sitting in my peripheral vision like it was watching me. I returned to the dining room, and as I passed, I noticed something on the back of the box, something I hadn't seen before. A tiny chip in the wood. A missing corner, shaved clean, as if something had been pried open once, then glued shut again. Elaine leaned in, inspecting it. That wasn't there yesterday. I didn't respond. David stood then, pushing his chair back roughly. Seriously, if it's bothering you so much, just open it. He walked off toward the stairs, muttering something I couldn't catch. Amanda didn't speak. She just smirked, like she'd already heard the ending to a story I hadn't started reading yet. I looked at Elaine. We need to be careful, she said quietly. There's something wrong in this house. It's not just about that box. The sunlight filtered through the blinds, hitting the box just right, casting a shadow on the table that looked almost like a keyhole. I didn't touch it. Not yet. Not until I knew what I was unlocking. That night, as the house settled and the pipes clicked in the walls, I swear I heard a faint wooden creak, like a lid opening in the dark. My neighbor Carl paused mid-wave. His eyes locked on our driveway, and stayed there. The morning frost hadn't yet melted when I stepped outside to breathe. The air bit my face, but I welcomed it. It was cleaner than the tension simmering inside that house. Carl from next door was halfway down his walk, leash in hand, his beagle sniffing patches of snow. He waved as usual, but something in his gaze changed when he saw the red ribbon still tied to the box through our living room window. He didn't smile. He didn't nod. He just kept walking. I went back inside. Elaine was standing near the kitchen island, watching Amanda carefully cut herself a grapefruit with a blade far sharper than needed. David scrolled his phone beside her, his cereal untouched, soggy in the bowl. I said nothing. They said less. Then, Amanda broke the silence. It's getting kind of rude now. I looked at her, pretending not to understand. That box, she said with an exaggerated nod toward the table. Still unopened. A little ungrateful, don't you think? Elaine lowered her tea without sipping. I never asked for a gift, I replied calmly. Especially not one that came with instructions to be afraid. David scoffed. Seriously, Dad? You're still doing this? Amanda raised both brows. I mean, it's just a box. It's not like it bites. The air shifted. She picked it up and moved it again, this time placing it in the center of my placemat. Fork, knife, and napkin cleared to make room for it. As if it had earned a place at the table more than I had. You keep staring at it, she said. Might as well open it and get it over with. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. Instead, I turned to David. Why are you letting her speak for you? He looked up slowly, as if just now realizing I was in the room. Because she's not wrong. You're blowing this out of proportion. You saw what was inside? No, he said, and neither did you. Elaine placed her hand on my forearm under the table. A quiet tether. My voice came quieter this time. It's not about what's in it, David. It's about the way it was given. Amanda smiled, slicing into the grapefruit. Juice sprayed faintly across the countertop. She didn't wipe it. Fine, she said, rising. If you're not going to appreciate the effort, maybe you don't need to be here for next year's Christmas. It was sharp. Not theatrical. Just plain and cruel. Elaine stiffened. David shrugged. She's not wrong. That one hit harder. Not because he said it. But because of how easily he said it. Like it had been sitting on the tip of his tongue for weeks. Maybe months. I stood. Not fast. Not dramatic. But the motion felt louder than a slammed door. Carl's reaction earlier made sense now. He'd seen something. Maybe not the argument, but the placement. The way the box was used not to gift, but to control. As I turned to leave the table, the chair leg caught the edge of the rug. The scraping sound made Amanda flinch, but only for a moment. I'll be outside, I said. You're welcome, Amanda called behind me. For the gift. I paused near the door. It wasn't a gift, I said. It was a dare. I stepped out onto the porch, cold wrapping around my ribs. A breath turned into fog. Across the street, a different neighbor, Mrs. Perry, walked out with her mail and squinted toward our house. She looked for a moment too long. Inside, Elaine appeared beside me, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "She's pushing," she said. "She's testing." "Same thing," Elaine replied. "She wants you to snap." I nodded slowly, staring at the box through the window. It sat like a centerpiece. Not just a decoration, but a symbol of who had power at that table. I noticed something underneath it. A slip of paper. I waited until Amanda and David went upstairs. Then, quietly, I returned inside, lifted the box, and found it. A folded legal draft. Typed. Stamped. The letterhead bore the name of a property law firm I didn't recognize. Elaine read over my shoulder. Her hand tightened on my wrist. "Will, this is a transfer proposal." It was. It detailed a voluntary change in house ownership, one where I agreed to, temporarily, place full control in David and Amanda's name. Buried in the second paragraph, joint inheritance, rights of sale. Elaine stepped back. "This was never a gift. It's a move." We both looked at the box. It had never played a song. Not once. But somehow, I heard the melody. Manipulation has a sound. And this one was in perfect pitch. I looked out the window again. Carl wasn't watching anymore. Now, he was talking to Mrs. Perry. And both of them were staring directly at our front door. She smiled too sweetly as she handed me a holiday folder. The next morning, I found Amanda already waiting at the kitchen table, lipstick perfect, hair pinned like she hadn't slept at all. "Morning," she chirped, sliding a red folder across the table. "Just some holiday housekeeping." Elaine entered behind me, her eyes narrowing immediately. Amanda placed her hand gently on the wooden music box. It was still resting at the table center like a judge at court. "I figured you'd want to look it over before we all get too busy," she added, voice syrupy as ever. "Just some boring paperwork. David said you'd be fine with it." The folder clicked open, its magnetic flap sounding like the snap of a mousetrap. Inside, pages printed in thick serif font, legalese wrapped in kindness. Elaine leaned in. I didn't touch it. The first page was harmless enough, a generic, transfer agreement. The second buried the hook. "In the event of any future medical incapacitation," I read slowly, "the undersigned waives individual control of all property assets in favor of their next of kin." Elaine's voice was flat. "Power of attorney." Amanda smiled. "Just in case something ever happens. You know, accidents, strokes, confusion. Gotta be prepared these days." I looked up. That's what the box was about. She blinked, faking innocence. "What box?" "The one you put on my plate. The one you moved while I slept. The one that came with a draft ready to sign." She reached into the folder again and pulled out a pen. "This doesn't have to be a whole thing, Mr. Bennett. You've said yourself that managing a house at your age isn't easy." From the hallway, David appeared, barefoot, yawning, holding a cup of orange juice like he hadn't just let his wife orchestrate a legal ambush. "You told her to do this?" I asked. David shrugged. "She's just being proactive. You're not getting any younger, Dad." Elaine's hand slid around my wrist beneath the table. "Not to calm me, but to anchor me. I built this house with my hands," I said. "Brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck. The only thing I didn't lay down myself was the foundation, and even that, I supervised." Amanda's smile never faltered. "Then you should understand how important it is to protect what you've built." I finally looked at the music box. Still closed. Still silent. And yet, it felt louder than the voices in the room. I stood up and pushed the folder back across the table. Not interested. Amanda tilted her head. It's not an offer. I'm not a fool. Her voice dropped an octave. You're not in control anymore. David looked between us, clearly uncomfortable, but said nothing. Elaine spoke, calm but cutting. Is that how you treat family, Amanda? With threats wrapped in bows? Amanda didn't answer. Instead, she picked up the pen and tapped it on the folder slowly. Click. 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 Then she stood, picked up the music box, and placed it back in the center of the table. Her voice was cold now. We thought you'd be grateful for a graceful transition. But if you'd rather make this ugly, that's your choice. David followed her out of the room, not looking back once. Elaine and I stood in silence. The folder remained open. The music box remained shut. We spent the afternoon pretending to clean. I rearranged tools in the garage that hadn't moved in years. Elaine dusted shelves that hadn't gathered dust. All the while, I kept replaying the conversation in my head, David's silence, Amanda's pen, the folder like bait. It wasn't about help. It was about removing me from the equation. Elaine finally broke the silence. That draft didn't just fall from the sky. I nodded. She's been planning this. She wants the house. No, I said. She wants control. That night, I walked past the dining room again. The lights were off. The moonlight spilled across the table in a long pale stripe. The music box gleamed like it was waiting. I stepped closer, staring at its edges. That chip in the back corner. The faint scrape around the hinge. Somebody had opened it before. But not recently. This box had history. Elaine joined me, wrapping her arm around mine. She's counting on you getting tired, she said. She's counting wrong. I reached out slowly, not to open it, but to test the weight. It was heavier than it looked. Like something had been added inside. Or something that used to be there, had been replaced. That night, as I placed it gently back on the shelf, the box shifted on its own, just slightly, just enough to whisper, "This is only the beginning." That evening, the house smelled like cinnamon, and silence. The next day's brunch was Amanda's idea. She insisted on getting back to normal, setting the table like a magazine spread, gold-rimmed plates, fresh napkins, and a Christmas centerpiece that looked expensive and unloved. The music box sat at the center again. Still unopened. Still quiet. Elaine and I moved mechanically. I carved the ham. She poured the cider. But nothing about the morning felt festive. It felt strategic. David barely looked up as he scrolled his phone. Amanda sat across from me, elbows on the table, waiting. Watching. Elaine passed me a serving spoon. Her hand brushed mine and lingered a second too long. "You okay?" she whispered. "No," I whispered back. "But I'm steady." Then it came. Amanda cleared her throat and stood, lifting a glass like it was a toast. "Before we eat," she said, "I'd like to thank you both, for the memories, for letting us make this house our home." Elaine's fork paused mid-air. David looked surprised, but didn't object. Amanda continued. "Of course, things change. Families evolve. It's important to pass the torch when the time is right." I placed my napkin on the table, carefully. Amanda reached into a drawer beside her, pulled out a manila envelope, and set it gently on top of the music box. The paper covered the wooden lid like a veil. "This is just confirmation," she said. "Everything's been filed. All we need now is your signature." David coughed. Whether it was nerves or embarrassment, I couldn't tell. He still didn't meet my eyes. I looked at Elaine. Her face was pale, lips pressed tight. But she didn't speak. Not yet. Amanda pushed the envelope closer. I know change can be hard. But this is the best thing for everyone. The room was too quiet. Even the dog had retreated to the far end of the hallway. I took a deep breath, then stood slowly. Amanda tilted her head. Are you really going to make this difficult? David looked up. Just sign it, Dad. That broke something in me. Not anger. Not fear. But a thread, a deep internal thread that had held the illusion of respect intact. I picked up my plate, still full of food, and held it out carefully. Then I walked to the trash can and let it fall, clatter, splatter, silence. I turned back to them. You want my seat? I said loud and clear. You just earned it. Elaine stood too, arms folded. You'll regret this, Amanda. Amanda laughed. No, Elaine. We'll finally have room to breathe. She tapped the music box. Besides, he already accepted the gift. Keeping it unopened won't change that. Elaine's hand clenched around the edge of the chair. David muttered, You're overreacting. No, son, I said. I'm reacting for the first time in years. I left the room. Walked through the hallway like a man remembering what silence felt like. In the bedroom, I pulled down the old suitcase, dusty, heavy, still smelling of road trips long past. I packed slowly. Shirts. Toiletries. The photo of Elaine and me from our anniversary. And the music box. Yes, I took it. Not because I wanted it, but because I needed to know why it made my wife so afraid. Elaine joined me, lips trembling but eyes firm. You're not doing this alone, she said. I am, I replied. Not because I want to. Because I have to. She reached for the box in my hands, held it gently, then passed it back. Don't open it, she whispered again. Not until we understand what they're really after. I nodded. Outside, the sun was beginning to dip, casting long shadows across the snow-covered lawn. Carl was back on his porch, sipping from a thermos. This time, he didn't wave. This time, he looked relieved. Elaine stood at the doorway as I loaded the suitcase into the trunk. I looked up at her, my wife, my anchor, my last line of truth. I'll call once I get there. She nodded. I'll stall them. Inside the house, I heard laughter. Amanda's. Followed by the sound of a drawer closing. Hard. As I pulled out of the driveway, my phone buzzed. A bank alert. New account request, joint ownership, pending approval. The zipper on my suitcase sounded louder than the tree's last ornament hitting the floor. It was still dark when I left. No wind. No birds. Just the click of my boots on the porch and the zip of that old suitcase, its wheels hesitating on every crack in the concrete like even it didn't want to go. Elaine stood behind me in her robe, arms wrapped tightly around herself, though I knew the chill wasn't just from the cold. You sure you don't want me to come? She asked. I nodded once. Let them think they've won. She reached into the coat pocket and handed me the music box, wrapped in one of her old scarves. Don't let it out of your sight. The box felt heavier than before, but maybe that was just the weight of everything it now meant. I glanced back at the house. Windows glowing faintly. Shadows moving inside, Amanda's shape crossing the hallway, probably headed for the kitchen to make her victory coffee. They didn't expect me to leave. They expected a fight, a tantrum, a useless argument to hold against me. Instead, I gave them silence. Silence unsettles people like Amanda. I turned the key in the ignition. The engine coughed, then caught. My wife stepped back, nodding once, and I pulled away. The motel I checked into was the kind that still used keys, not keycards. Room 108. One lamp. One bed. One rusted radiator that clicked every 3 minutes like a nervous tick. The front desk clerk didn't ask questions. He barely looked up. Perfect. I placed the music box on the nightstand, next to the outdated alarm clock blinking 12 o'clock over and over again. It didn't play. But something about it still filled the room with noise. I sat on the edge of the bed, still in my coat, and stared at it. Elaine's voice echoed in my mind. Don't open it. Not yet. I turned on the radio. Static. Then a clear old blues tune hummed through the speaker. It felt honest. Real. Nothing in that house had felt real in a long time. I made a list on the motel notepad. Dates. Accounts. Documents they didn't think I'd remember. They'd forgotten who they were dealing with. The next morning, I woke to a knock on the wall, thin drywall, someone moving next door. Motel life had its own soundtrack. I stepped outside, the motel hallway cold and quiet. A man across the lot was scraping frost off his windshield. He nodded politely, not knowing my name, not needing to. Back inside, I brewed motel coffee, burnt and bitter, but it grounded me. Then I opened my laptop. Email. Bank account. Mortgage statements. I scrolled past the bills and balances and stopped at a familiar name. Joint ownership request, pending. Requested by Amanda T. Caldwell. Authorized by David Caldwell. Recipient, William Bennett. My blood ran still. She wasn't just trying to manipulate me emotionally. She was already moving my name into a grave. Elaine had been right. The box was never a gift. It was a coffin. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. James C. Riley, my old banker. He answered on the second ring. William? Been a while. James, I said, I need to make some changes. Immediate ones. You okay? I will be, I replied. But some people are about to be very uncomfortable. I reached for the music box, set it on the bed. Something caught my eye beneath it. A tag. It must have slipped from the scarf Elaine wrapped it in. The original gift tag. To William. From Amanda. Merry Christmas, you've earned it. The I in William was drawn like a dagger. I crumpled it and tossed it into the trash. Back on the phone, I moved fast. Removed Amanda's name from all linked accounts. Revoked David's access to the family credit line. Stopped the automated payments for the house utilities. Are you sure? James asked. I stared at the box. I built the roof, I said. Let's see how they handle the rain. That night, as I shut off the motel light, the music box clicked once, just once, and then went quiet, as if it approved. By dawn, I had their mortgage under my login, and my finger hovering. The motel room smelled like stale air and reheated coffee. But to me, it was the smell of clarity. I'd slept maybe 2 hours. Not that I needed more. The weight that used to press on my chest at night was gone, replaced by a different kind of pressure. Purpose. The sun hadn't even risen when I opened my laptop again. My fingers moved fast, muscle memory guiding me through accounts I once used to help them, David's student loans, Amanda's car insurance, the family grocery card I'd funded since they were married. Now every screen was a chessboard. And I was finally playing offense. I started with the house. I logged into the mortgage account and disabled autopay. The system warned me twice, this may result in late penalties. I clicked confirm. It felt cleaner than I expected. Like breathing fresh winter air. I moved to the next tab, joint savings. Amanda had tried to add herself as an authorized user a month ago. I revoked every pending access. Removed David from the recovery email. Changed all security questions. The screen blinked, update successful. The click of the mouse felt like pulling a trigger. My phone buzzed. It was James, my old banker. You moved quick, he said. Everything okay? They thought I wouldn't remember, I replied. But they forgot I wrote the checks. He chuckled grimly. You want the credit cards frozen too? All of them, I said. And pull the history. I want to know how far back this manipulation goes. You might not like what you find. I already don't, I replied. Let's keep going. Next up, Amanda's car insurance. I'd co-signed years ago, when they said her new job depended on having her own vehicle. I opened the portal, found her profile, and unchecked the box beside active policy. Another warning, are you sure you want to cancel this coverage? Yes. Let the road feel different beneath her tires. Let reality sting. Then came the grocery card. The one I'd reloaded every month for 5 years without fail. I pulled the transfer for January. Cancelled. For the first time in years, I said aloud, my account balance belongs only to me. The motel TV flickered in the background, playing an infomercial about ceramic knives, silent but sharp. It felt oddly fitting. The music box sat beside the lamp, closed. But the light hit its carved edges just right, casting a shadow that looked like a keyhole. I hadn't opened it. Not yet. But somehow, every move I made, felt like turning the dial. By mid-morning, I sat back and let the silence stretch. Amanda would wake up first. She was always early, always in control. She'd check the grocery card before shopping. Then the insurance. Then the bills. Then panic. David would still be asleep. And when she woke him, he'd realize something irreversible had begun. I opened my email. 30 unread voicemails from the family line. I didn't listen. Not yet. Each one could wait. Each one was a brick in the wall I was rebuilding, around myself. I poured another cup of motel coffee and walked to the window. The frost had melted. Sunlight hit the lot in clean white lines. An old man walked his dog past the edge of the parking lot. He looked up and nodded. This time, I nodded back. I wasn't hiding anymore. The motel clerk knocked gently that afternoon, delivering extra towels. He paused at the door, eyeing the small music box on the table. That's a nice piece, he said. Looks antique. It is, I replied. Does it still play? Not yet, I said. It will when it's ready. He looked confused but polite, then backed away. I shut the door softly. And smiled. By nightfall, their phones would ring, their bills would bounce, and my silence would be deafening. My phone blinked 23 times. I didn't blink once. By Wednesday morning, the voicemails had started to stack like bricks. Amanda's voice came first, clipped, composed, too polite. Hey, just a heads up, something's weird with the account. Maybe a glitch? I deleted it. The next came 2 hours later. William, could you check the card? We're at checkout. This is really inconvenient. Delete. By nightfall, her voice cracked. The control slipped. You froze the mortgage? Are you kidding me? I let that one sit in the inbox a while before I erased it too. David's calls came late. He didn't sound angry. He sounded confused. Dad, did you mean to? Amanda's saying everything's, just call me back. I didn't. The motel was quiet, as always. The radiator clicked every few minutes. The sink dripped in slow, lazy intervals. It was peace, but not the numb kind. It was the kind you feel when the ground stops shaking. I sat by the window sipping cold coffee, listening to their desperation echo through missed calls and ignored messages. Across the parking lot, the wind carried the smell of diesel and melting ice. It reminded me of long drives, when David was young and everything he needed could fit in a backpack. Now, he needed more. Too much. That afternoon, I visited the diner near the highway. A few truckers sat in booths, shoveling eggs and toast without eye contact. The waitress, a woman named Sandy, smiled like we'd met before. Maybe we had, years ago. She poured my coffee and said, "Rough day?" "No," I said. "First good one in a while." She gave me a look that said she didn't believe me, but respected the lie. The music box was in my coat pocket. I hadn't opened it. Still hadn't dared. But I could feel something shifting inside it. Like waiting. Like breath. Back at the motel, I found something new. A small padded envelope slid under the door. No return address. My name written in jagged black ink, W. Bennett. Inside? Nothing but a single object. Elaine's wedding ring. I sat down slowly, the weight of the ring in my palm unfamiliar. Elaine had never taken it off, not since the day I put it there. And now it was here. Without a note. Without a message. I checked my phone. No new voicemails from her. Only more from Amanda. "You're being cruel. We're your family. Are you really doing this over a misunderstanding?" Each one sounded more like a courtroom than a call. I placed the ring on the table, beside the music box. For a long time, I just stared at them side by side, one symbol of everything I built, the other of everything they tried to take. A knock on the motel door startled me. Firm. Twice. Then silence. I walked to the peephole and looked through. Empty. No one in the hall. I opened it anyway. Just to be sure. And on the doormat, wrapped in a strip of Amanda's floral scarf, sat another envelope. This one held a printed letter. Typed in clean, bold font. "If you don't cooperate, we will have to pursue alternative resolutions." No name. No signature. No company header. Just the scent of Amanda's perfume embedded in the fabric. I called Elaine. Voicemail. I didn't leave a message. She'd call when she could. If she could. My fingers ran along the edge of the music box, then the ring. Something connected between them now. Not just in weight, but in meaning. Amanda wasn't just making power plays anymore. She was trying to shake me loose from the one person holding me steady. She wanted me isolated. They wanted leverage. But they'd underestimated one thing. I'd spent my life building safety. They'd spent theirs spending it. The phone buzzed again. 22 missed calls. I turned it over on the nightstand, screen down. The radiator clicked again. Louder this time. Almost like a warning. The motel walls whispered nothing. And I smiled. Because for the first time, their desperation was louder than my fear. Through the peephole, I saw them both, standing side by side, shoulders tense, eyes wide. They had found me. And they were unraveling. I opened the envelope, and my name wasn't the only one listed. Their knock came at dusk. Not frantic. Not loud. Just steady enough to make it feel like a formality. I stood at the motel door, breath held, the ring in one hand and the music box still unopened in the other. Through the peephole, I saw Amanda first, arms crossed, lips tight, a woman unraveling but too proud to admit it. David stood beside her, hands deep in his jacket pockets. He looked like a boy who'd followed someone too far into the woods and just realized he didn't know the way back. I opened the door. Not wide. Just enough for my eyes to meet theirs. I didn't invite them in. Didn't offer a seat. Didn't ask why they'd come. Amanda didn't wait for the silence to settle. You've humiliated us. David added, we're your family. No, I said calmly. Family doesn't forge names. Her mouth opened, then shut. Just for a second. What are you talking about? She asked. I reached for the table behind me and lifted the padded envelope they had so kindly delivered earlier. Elaine's ring showed up here. Wrapped in your scarf. No note. No call. Just a warning in perfume. Amanda flinched. Not from the accusation, but from the mention of her own scent. Details always unravel the lie. David stepped forward. We didn't send that. You sure? I said. Because this envelope also came with a typed letter. No signature. No header. Just a threat. Amanda looked at David. He looked away. That's when I knew. He didn't know everything. But he knew enough to be afraid. Behind them, headlights lit up the lot. A familiar SUV pulled in. The local pastor, Reverend Mark Hughes, stepped out holding a paper bag from the diner. He froze when he saw us. Amanda turned, startled. Our eyes met. His brow furrowed. His lips parted. But he said nothing. He simply nodded once, and stepped into the office, leaving the door ajar. He'd seen enough. The fallout was no longer private. Back at the door, Amanda tried again. You're doing this for control. Not justice. I tilted my head. Control? You want to talk control? I reached for the folder James had emailed and printed for me that morning. I held it up. Amanda T. Caldwell. Loan request submitted December 12, for $50,000. Secured against a property title to William Bennett. David blinked. What? I never signed anything, I continued. But the bank received authorization anyway. With a signature that looks exactly like mine, on a date I wasn't even in town. Amanda stepped back. You're making this up. No, I said, stepping forward. You are. I tossed the folder onto the bed behind me. Banks investigating. Fraud inquiries open. And the sheriff's next. David's face turned pale. Amanda, tell me you didn't. But she didn't answer. She couldn't. Her silence was louder than any confession. The motel hallway grew still. Even the radiator stopped clicking. I spoke again, quieter this time. You could have asked for help. You could have told the truth. But you tried to write me out of my own life. Amanda finally snapped. We gave you everything. Time, care, space, you were decaying in that house. David grabbed her arm, trying to pull her back. Enough. No, she shouted. He wants to be the victim. That's his game. Reverend Hughes stepped out of the office then. Evening, he said, his voice neutral but steady. Amanda turned quickly. You're just in time. He's accusing me of fraud now. Mark didn't blink. I heard enough. David whispered, Pastor, I didn't know. You knew enough, Mark said, voice now firmer. And you watched. Amanda's face collapsed into something halfway between rage and dread. I met the pastor's gaze. He gave me a slow nod. Truth always walks, he said. Sometimes it just takes longer. Amanda turned to me, teeth clenched. You want war? Fine. No, I replied. I want peace. Then stop this. I stepped aside and let the motel door open wider. They saw it now. The folder on the bed. The music box on the table. Elaine's ring beside it. David's face broke. Something deep in him cracked. I just wanted you to trust me again, he whispered. You gave that away, I said. To her. Not me. Amanda stepped forward, eyes sharp. This isn't over. And then came the line that chilled the entire hallway. Her voice dropped low. You don't know what else I've put in motion. As they turned to leave, her last words weren't a threat, they were a promise. And promises from desperate people are the most dangerous kind. The sheriff's office was quiet, until I said their names. The courthouse didn't feel like justice. It felt like paperwork. Like recycled air and tired chairs and coffee that had sat too long on a burner. But it was quiet. And in quiet places, truth echoes louder. I walked in with a folder under my arm. Not thick. Not dramatic. Just enough to carry the pages they never thought I'd collect. The receptionist glanced up, recognized the name on the appointment log, and waved me through. Sheriff Porter waited behind a desk that looked older than the building itself. Mr. Bennett, he said, standing. James said you'd be stopping by. I nodded. Did he mention why? The sheriff sat back down. Said you've got something that smells like premeditated fraud. I placed the folder on the desk. Slowly. Deliberately. Then I reached into my coat and added the music box. He looked at it, then back at me. Sentimental value? Symbolic, I said. Everything started with that box. He opened the folder first. Scanned the forged loan documents. Circled the fake signature. Noted the date, the same day I was out of state visiting my brother, verifiable by credit card records and toll receipts. He didn't speak for a while. But the tightness in his jaw said enough. You understand, he finally said, this puts us in legal territory now. Serious stuff. I do. Family? Blood doesn't sign your name in invisible ink, I said. And they stopped acting like family a long time ago. He sighed. We've had rising elder abuse cases this year. But this. He tapped the music box. What's in it? I hesitated. Then I flipped the latch. It didn't play music. Instead, a hidden compartment popped open. Inside, a small voice recorder. I pressed play. Amanda's voice filled the office. Her tone from a dinner conversation 2 weeks earlier, casual, almost smug. We just need him to sign. If he refuses, we'll apply pressure. David's voice followed. Let's just tell him it's for insurance cleanup. Amanda again. He doesn't need to know the details. Old people don't read fine print. The sheriff didn't move. Then he said, would you be okay submitting this as evidence? I nodded. That's why I brought it. He opened a drawer. Took out a form. Slid it toward me. As I signed, he leaned forward, eyes level with mine. This won't be quiet. You know that, right? I'm counting on it, I said. They tried to steal my life in whispers. Let's answer them in thunder. By noon, the forms were filed. Fraud report initiated. Evidence secured. And a restraining order request entered into the system. Sheriff Porter promised a follow-up within 72 hours. Next step, he said, is enforcement. That means they'll be served. Let them be, I replied. They wanted control. Let them feel what the law tastes like when it doesn't bend. On the way out, I stopped by the courthouse cafe. Ordered a coffee and sat by the window. Outside, 2 old men played checkers on a stone bench. One of them glanced up, squinted, then nodded politely. I nodded back. The music box sat on the table beside me. It looked different now. Not because it had changed, but because I had. What once felt like a threat now felt like proof. They'd handed me the very object that would bring them down. Later that afternoon, I walked into town, slow, quiet steps through the heart of a community that had whispered about me. Now, they stared differently. A woman at the grocery store offered a polite smile. "We heard you're staying at the Blue Pine Motel." I nodded. "Good folks over there," she added. "Real peaceful." Another man near the post office paused as I passed. "William," he said, "you holding up all right?" "I am," I replied. Finally. At the edge of the parking lot, I saw Reverend Hughes again. He wasn't in his collar. Just flannel and boots. He approached without hesitation. "I heard what you did today," he said. "You heard fast. Truth doesn't need time to travel, just an open road." He glanced at the music box in my hand. "Still carrying that?" "Until the final page," I said. He nodded. "Then, you've got more people behind you than you think." I returned to the motel that evening. Sat on the bed. Read the sheriff's receipt twice. Then placed it beside the ring and the recorder. 3 items. Each one a weapon. Not out of vengeance, but restoration. Justice doesn't roar. Sometimes, it clicks like a latch. And that was the sound I heard again as I closed the music box, this time knowing it no longer held fear. It held my voice. And theirs. By the time I left the courthouse, the papers were signed. Tomorrow, the sheriff would knock on their door, and Amanda would finally hear what consequence sounds like. The bank called David. They never meant to reach me. David's voicemail hit my inbox at 9:17 a.m. "Dad, we need to talk. Please." I didn't know. I swear I didn't know everything. I didn't call back. Instead, I went for a walk. Down the block, past the cafe, where an older man I didn't know tipped his hat and said, "About time someone stood up to that kind of thing." Word travels faster in small towns than Wi-Fi. At the hardware store, a cashier whispered, "She had a temper even in here." By the diner, Sandy met my eyes through the window. No wave this time. Just a solemn nod. The tide had turned. But this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about repair. Back at the motel, I opened the laptop again. A new message blinked in my inbox: "James, the banker." He'd CC'd me on an internal audit report. Subject: Caldwell Loan Inquiry, confirmed forgery. "William, we've verified the digital signature on the $50,000 application was fabricated. Timestamp does not match your usual access points. Audio log you provided is being submitted to legal team. As of now, all joint accounts are suspended pending investigation." Attached was a copy of the loan form. Amanda's digital fingerprint was embedded in the authorization log. David's was absent. Whether that meant ignorance or avoidance, I didn't yet know. An hour later, the motel phone rang. It was the front desk. "Mr. Bennett, someone's asking for you." Not pushing, just waiting in the lobby. I didn't need to ask who. I grabbed the music box and walked down slowly. David was sitting in one of the fake leather chairs, both elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. He stood when he saw me. He looked like a man who hadn't slept. "Dad," he said, voice already cracked, "I didn't sign that form." "I know," I said. "But I didn't stop her either." "I know that too." He nodded, ashamed. I wanted to believe she had it handled. I didn't want to fight." "You didn't fight," I said coldly. "You surrendered." He looked down at the floor. "You think I'm weak? I think you forgot who raised you." We sat in silence for a while. The music box rested between us on the table. David stared at it like it might explain things he never dared ask. "Was it real?" he finally asked. "The recording?" I tapped the lid once. "It's still real." He sank back in his chair. She told me the money was to cover a health crisis. She said you were hiding expenses. I gave a bitter smile. She wasn't wrong. I was hiding something. My disappointment. David winced. She made it seem like everything was falling apart. Like you were slipping. Funny, I said, that's exactly what she was doing. He took a deep breath. You're going to press charges? That's not up to me anymore. The sheriff's office filed on their own. The bank's backing it. He looked like someone had taken all the air out of his chest. She didn't even tell me she filed a second request. My head snapped toward him. What second request? He froze. There was a second form. This morning. She said it was cleanup. Just house deed consolidation. I stood immediately. Did you sign it? No, he said, fast. No, I walked out. Where is she? I don't know, he said. She left right after. We drove in silence to the house. The moment I stepped out of the car, I knew. The front door was cracked open. Lights off. No cars. Inside, the house smelled different. Not lived in. Not cooked in. Stale. Elaine's coat still hung on the rack. But her shoes were gone. My chest tightened. Elaine? I called. Nothing. David wandered upstairs. I went to the kitchen. The table was bare, no centerpiece, no folder. But on the countertop, under a magnet, was a printed email. Amanda's Gmail. To her sister. If this doesn't work, I'm done pretending. He'll give up or I'll sell it out from under him. David will thank me later. My hands trembled, but not from fear. From control. From clarity. This was her final move. David returned downstairs, eyes wide. She's gone. So is her suitcase. He paused. Also. Mom's jewelry box is missing. My hand went to my pocket. Elaine's ring. The one they'd sent me without a note. A message without words, she's not yours anymore. Back at the motel, I replayed everything. Then I sat down, opened the music box again, and pressed record. My own voice now, steady. My name is William Bennett. I am not a victim. I am not a man who begs. This is a record. For the court. For the truth. For my wife. Then I closed it. At 3:17 a.m., a blocked number called once. I didn't answer. But the voicemail was from Elaine. And she was crying. The church bell rang once, and then again. The second toll wasn't scheduled. Sunday morning, the pews were full. Winter coats draped over shoulders, coffee breath in the air, and hymnbooks flipping on instinct. I hadn't been to service in months. Not since Amanda started whispering to people after the benediction, shaking hands a little too long, smiling with her teeth but not her eyes. But I came that morning with purpose. Not to worship. To witness. Elaine's message still echoed in my head, voicemail cracked with panic, breathless and choked. Will, I don't know where she's taking me. She said it's just a weekend. But she has my purse. I don't have my phone. The message cut off. No call back. No reply. So I went to the one place Amanda couldn't spin her charm without consequence. The church. Reverend Hughes was already at the pulpit when I arrived. He saw me walk in. His eyes widened slightly, then he nodded once, to me, not the crowd. I sat near the front. The music box sat in my coat pocket. Weightless now. It wasn't just symbolic anymore. It was evidence. Halfway through the sermon, a sound interrupted. Not a cough. Not a baby's cry. The front door creaked open. Amanda. Wearing white. Not bright white, subtle. The kind designed to make a statement without making a scene. She walked straight down the aisle like it was a courtroom. And sat beside David. He didn't look at her. Didn't touch her hand. Didn't lean in. Amanda leaned close anyway and whispered something. Reverend Hughes paused. Looked right at them. Then adjusted his notes and said, "Today's scripture is about accountability." And just like that, the energy shifted. He told the story of the prodigal son, but differently. He didn't focus on forgiveness. He focused on the father who watched quietly as the son left with what didn't belong to him. And how the community, not just the household, bore witness to his return. It wasn't subtle. And Amanda knew it. Her jaw clenched tighter with each verse. Then Reverend Hughes closed the Bible and said, "Sometimes, God doesn't wait for your confession. He lets your sins announce themselves." Silence. Not even the children rustled. Amanda stood. "I think that's enough of that," she said, loud, clear. Gasps. Even the choir froze. David tried to pull her back down. She refused. "I'm not going to sit here and let someone slander me from the pulpit." Reverend Hughes didn't raise his voice. Didn't move. He just said, "You're free to leave, Mrs. Caldwell. But the truth won't go with you." And then, from the side pew, came a voice. "Carl." The neighbor who'd seen her car parked sideways in our driveway on Christmas night. He stood, slow and deliberate. Maybe if you hadn't screamed at Elaine in the driveway, people wouldn't have questions. Another voice chimed in. A woman from the choir, "My niece works at the bank. She said someone tried to move the deed, twice." Amanda turned, color draining from her face. "I don't have to listen to this." I stood. The music box in my hand. "Then maybe listen to this." I pressed play. Amanda's voice filled the sanctuary. "If he refuses, we'll apply pressure. He doesn't need to know the details." People turned. Whispers spread like wildfire. David looked like he'd been shot. Amanda rushed forward, snatched at the box, but I stepped back. "Touch it," I warned, "and you'll give them more proof." Reverend Hughes stepped down from the pulpit. Placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "William," he said. "Do you want to address the congregation?" I didn't answer. I simply turned to them all. Held up the music box like a final word. And said, "This wasn't a gift. It was a mask." Amanda left. Stormed out without David. No one followed. No one comforted her. Carl muttered, "Took long enough." David sat frozen in the pew. Tears running, silent, ashamed. Reverend Hughes closed the service with no benediction. Just a prayer for the hearts we let fall apart. Outside, I found a small note under my windshield wiper. Folded neatly. In Elaine's handwriting. "If you read this, I'm okay." She drove north. But I dropped a pin from the gas station near Greenwood. "Come find me." As the last hymn echoed through the glass, I started the engine. And the music box, still in my pocket, clicked once, then stayed open. She thought forging my name was the crime. She forgot I still owned the pen. The Greenwood gas station sat at the edge of a snow-bitten highway, half forgotten by GPS and blessed by cheap coffee. I arrived just after dawn. Elaine sat inside by the window, wrapped in an old fleece blanket. Her eyes were hollow but alert. When she saw me, her hand trembled around the styrofoam cup. I crossed the diner slowly, pulled the booth seat beside her, and didn't say a word. She placed her hand on mine. The ring was gone, but the warmth was still there. "She's gone to her sister's in Millwood," she said. "Told them we had a mental episode." Said we're being erratic. I stared at the snow outside. She's not wrong, I said. I'm finally thinking clearly. Elaine didn't smile. But she nodded. She took my ID, she whispered. Tried to file for medical proxy. That was the last thread. The last needle she tried to sew power through. And she stitched her own name into the center of it. 2 hours later, I walked into the Millwood County Recorder's office. This time, I brought someone with me. James, the banker. He carried a folder. Thick. Heavy. Everything Amanda never expected us to recover. Deed filings, he told the clerk. We're here to reverse an unauthorized claim. Amanda had attempted to file a property transfer using Elaine's identity. But she'd missed one thing. Elaine's signature. She didn't have it. She had a scan from an old utility form. But the original was never notarized. Forgery fails when it skips the details. James handed over the certified statement. I handed over the music box. Inside, another recording. Elaine's voice this time. I never signed any medical authority. I never gave Amanda Caldwell permission to file any document in my name. This is my statement of sound mind and independence. Stamped. Dated. Recorded 3 days earlier. The clerk blinked. This is airtight, he said. We'll flag her filing and initiate rollback. James added, also request to freeze all property moves until court review. It was done. No drama. No lawyers. Just protocol and proof. They tried to erase me with silence. I answered them with paper. Outside, James asked if I wanted to celebrate. I shook my head. This wasn't a win, I said. It was a correction. He understood. Some men still did. That afternoon, I returned to the Blue Pine Motel one last time. Packed my things. Placed the music box, still open, at the bottom of my bag. Elaine waited outside in a borrowed coat. Where now? She asked. Home. She looked unsure. I don't want that place anymore, she said. Too many ghosts. Then we build new walls, I told her. Same foundation. Better locks. Back at the house, we arrived to find the locks already changed. Amanda had moved fast. But I moved faster. The sheriff's vehicle was already in the driveway. Sheriff Porter stepped out, holding a set of new keys. Judge granted possession reversal, he said. Mail-in fraud and elder financial abuse filed jointly. He looked at me. She made it ugly, William. But the paper trail makes it clean. Elaine looked up at me, tears building. You came for me, she whispered. Always. Inside, the house smelled like lemon cleaner and bleach, Amanda's overcompensation scent. Her things were gone. A few photos missing from the walls. One drawer in the bedroom left open. Inside, a single note. You wanted war. You won. But don't expect peace. It wasn't signed. It didn't need to be. Her handwriting always leaned left, like a threat pretending to bow. I placed the note into the music box. Closed the lid. And this time, I turned the key. It played. For the first time in weeks, it played. But the sound wasn't haunting. It was steady. Precise. Like something waking up. Elaine leaned against the doorframe, listening. That's the song we danced to, she said. I remember, I replied. And we stood there, older, wiser, bruised, but upright. While the box played on. The next morning, a certified letter arrived addressed to me. Inside, a single line, we want to talk. And beneath it, David's signature, not Amanda's. When I opened the letter, David had signed his name. But the words weren't his. The certified envelope lay on the counter, unopened, for half a day. Elaine asked twice if I was going to read it. I told her, when the music stops. She didn't ask what I meant. Because she understood. That music box hadn't stopped playing since I turned it the day before. And as long as it spun, I had time. Time to decide what kind of ending this story would have. By mid-afternoon, I slit the envelope open. Inside, one page. Typed. Neat. No legal threats this time. No demands. Just a short note. We need to talk. Amanda is not well. David wants to see you. Please give him a chance to speak, in person. He says he remembers the porch. Maybe start there. No signature. But at the bottom, in blue ink, David had written, "Dad, I'm sorry." The handwriting shook. Like a boy learning cursive again. Elaine stayed home. I didn't ask her to come. This was mine. I drove to the parkway behind the house, the old walking trail where David and I used to throw rocks into the creek. I waited on the same bench we'd once carved our initials into. It was faded now, nearly invisible. But still there. Like most things that matter. He arrived right before sunset. No Amanda. No car, he must have walked. That meant something. He sat beside me, both hands flat on his knees. I didn't know she took your voice. I nodded, once. I thought she just wanted space. To manage things. She wanted control, I said. And she got it. Until I took it back. He sighed. I let her do things I didn't ask questions about. That's called permission. He winced. I don't want money. Or the house. He looked at the creek. I want to not feel like I lost both my parents. You lost the version of me you took for granted. I know. A long silence passed. Then he reached into his coat and pulled something out. The original deed transfer form. Unsigned. Folded neatly. I didn't let her file this one, he said. She screamed for 2 hours. I didn't reach for it. He placed it on the bench between us, like an offering. I won't defend what she did. I don't know how to live with it. By not repeating it. He nodded. Then, what happens now? I looked up at the sky, sun setting through winter branches. You'll get a letter from the court. I figured. But before that, you'll get something else. What? I pulled out a second envelope, already sealed, already stamped. This. He took it. Opened it slowly. Inside, a single page. David, you are no longer co-beneficiary on any property under my name. You may contest this legally, but I will not reinstate you voluntarily. You may rebuild trust. But inheritance is earned now. Not owed. He looked up. Tears welled, but didn't fall. He folded it carefully. I deserve worse. Maybe, I said. But I'm still your father. I just won't be your safety net. He left without another word. Didn't hug me. Didn't curse. Just walked. Maybe to Amanda. Maybe away from her. That choice was his. Back home, I found Elaine asleep in the armchair. The music box still spun. The note from Amanda still tucked inside. I sat beside her, pulled the note out, and read it again. You wanted war. You won. But don't expect peace. I folded it in half, then again, then one more time, until it fit beneath the felt lining of the music box. I closed the lid. And this time, I didn't lock it. Because the war was over. And peace? Peace didn't come from silence. It came from knowing you didn't flinch when the begging started. The next morning, a crowd gathered at the town square. Pastor Hughes had called for a meeting. And he said it was time to set the record right. I never asked for applause. But that morning, the silence stood for me. The square filled slowly. Old faces. Young ones. Some who believed the gossip. Some who helped spread it. But they were here now. Even that mattered. Reverend Hughes stood at the center, microphone clipped to his lapel, folding chair beside him where the speaker usually sits. Today, he didn't ask for speeches. He asked for presence. Sometimes, he said, truth doesn't need a voice. It just needs a seat no one else can fill. He turned to me. William? I shook my head. No speech. No script. Instead, I walked to the center holding only one thing in my hands. The music box. Closed. But unlocked. I placed it on the folding chair. Then stepped back. For a moment, no one moved. Then Sandy from the diner clapped. Just once. But it was enough. Others followed. Not loud. Not choreographed. Not charity. Respect. That's what it sounds like when shame is outlived. Elaine stood beside me, chin high, eyes glistening. A woman nearby whispered, she never left him. Not once. And that's when I realized. The story they had believed was over. But the one I chose to write was finally being read. After the gathering, I retrieved the music box from the chair. Someone had placed a folded piece of paper underneath it. A note. From Carl. You didn't deserve what they tried. And you didn't let it define you. This town talks. But today, it listened. I smiled. That's all I needed. Back home, I placed the music box on the mantel. Elaine placed her ring beside it. I want it here, she said. Let people see it when they visit. I nodded. It didn't look like a warning anymore. It looked like a marker. Of what we survived. Of what we reclaimed. Of how we learned to stop explaining ourselves to people who only ever planned to take. Weeks passed. Amanda never returned to town. David called once, left a voicemail. He'd found work 2 counties over. Said he was going to therapy. Didn't ask for money. Didn't mention inheritance. Just wanted to say he remembered the porch. I didn't call back. But I wrote him a letter. You were a good boy once. That's still inside you. Find it. You don't owe me anything, except that you never become the kind of man who lets others steal on his behalf again. Spring came early. The snow melted before the crocuses bloomed. Elaine and I started planting again, small things. Not for show. For roots. The kind no one else can dig up. The last time I opened the music box, I placed one final item inside. The court letter. Stamped, sealed, and filed. Proof that the house was mine. Again. Not just on paper. But in spirit. Then I closed the lid. And let the silence stay. On the mantel, the music box gleamed in the morning light, closed, quiet, and no longer afraid. If this story moved you, share it with someone who still believes dignity can be reclaimed. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in his shoes? Thanks for watching.